Hello, my name's Mike and welcome to this latest video from midatravel. Today I am going to be telling you about my love-hate relationship with Msc Virtuosa. Yes, I sailed on Virtuosa at the end of May 2025 and I had a 2-night booze cruise to Le Havre in France. It was also the first time I'd been as a solo, so that made it quite interesting for me as well. But anyway, before I start, let's just say I've already put 3 parts of my time on the ship out. I'll put part 1 above. Part 1 was a little bit horrendous. I had my own version of a poop cruise. No, wait a minute. I won't compare it to Carnival's poop cruise because I do feel so sorry for those poor people. Let's just say I had a little bit of poop gate. But anyway, I'll come to that a little bit later down the line. But part 1 I'll put above, and obviously if you haven't seen, then you'll see that my first 5 hours on board Virtuosa were a little bit of a nightmare. But did I grow to love it? Well, hopefully this video will be my review of what I feel about the cruise in general. If you haven't already subscribed, then please consider subscribing. It helps our channel a great deal. It helps push our channel out to more people. And also hit the like button if you enjoy the video, and the bell if you'd like to receive notifications of our forthcoming videos. A big shout out to our channel members. We really appreciate your ongoing support. So without any further ado, let's get going. So let's start first of all with some loves. I absolutely love the fact that MSC use Horizon Port, which is the nearest port to Southampton Central railway station. If you are arriving by train, you will have no trouble at all getting to the port. Now, I walked it, but there are both taxis and a bus available as soon as you come out of the railway station. The walk, if you choose to do that like I did, was a 10-minute, very easy walk. No stairs, no sort of hills to speak of. It was all quite flat. And apart from a couple of roads to navigate to cross, it was so simple. So if you have got good mobility, then I definitely say it's worth considering the train, and when you get there, save your money and walk. It was simple. Secondly, let me say that I loved the embarkation process. The embarkation was so simple, and considering that they do this over and over and over again on a weekly basis, that, you know, it should be down to a fine art, and they have succeeded with that. Embarkation was a breeze. The minute you go into the embarkation hall, you're straight through security, and then you're at the check-in desk, and next thing, before you know it, you're on the ship. And I did also as well love the staff in the hall. They were so friendly and welcoming, and as I walked on the ship, I just had a smile on my face because of the greetings that I had. Next thing I love is when you get onto the ship, there are 2 routes on. They have 2 gates that you can enter from. Both are spectacular when you first come onto the ship. One that I went on comes directly out into the atrium. The atrium is stunning with its Swarovski crystal stairs, and the glass and the reflections. Everything in the atrium was absolutely beautiful. The other entrance comes out into Galleria Virtuosa, and this was without doubt one of my favourite parts of the ship. I could have lay on the floor and just looked at the LED ceiling for hours on end. It absolutely fascinated me. So that could be your first sight when you walk onto the ship. So far, so good. The first thing that I wanted to do, and even though I knew the rooms weren't going to be ready, I should just say that I wasn't due to embark onto the ship until 1 p.m. I actually started my embarkation at about 1:30 to 1:40. So I was a little bit early, but I didn't feel I was taking the mickey. And I had no problem getting on. I wasn't questioned about the time or made to sit and wait or anything like that. So I think if you're a little bit early, I don't think you're going to have a problem getting on. So I knew the rooms weren't going to be ready till 2:30 p.m. And so I decided, but you were allowed, which I did love, that you could go to the room and you could drop your bags off. Now, I found my room, and yes, it wasn't ready. It hadn't, I think the bed had been changed, but it certainly hadn't been cleaned. There was lots of mess on the floor, etc. So I dumped my bags in the wardrobe. I did quickly get changed because I was a bit hot and sweaty after my long train journey down from the Midlands. And I was able to get changed, and then there was a problem. And the one thing I didn't like was you didn't get your cruise card when you were boarding. And there was I'd had no explanation of as what point I should get the cruise card. So if it wasn't given to me at the check-in desk, should it have been in my room when I got there? But my room hadn't been done. And I'd still got about 90 minutes before the room was due to be finished cleaning. So there was no way I could go and get a drink or, do anything without a cruise card. So I decided to go to reception, and the next thing I absolutely love, we have found receptions can not be the best places. Staff there can be, probably most staff on the cruise ships, whichever department, are brilliant, but reception is the place that you tend to sometimes find staff that aren't quite so friendly. But I had a really, really lovely first visit there. I should say the first of many visits there, and the person that dealt with me was brilliant. She printed me off another cruise card, and that was it. I was then able to go off and get a drink. Now, the ship was extremely busy, and this is a theme that is probably going to come up numerous times. This was at full capacity, and the ship, I believe, holds 6,400 people, all getting on at the sort of same day, let's say, but at different times. But by the time I got on, it was already very busy. There are lots of party groups. Now, I was under no illusion of the type of cruise I was going on, so it didn't surprise me at all. What I perhaps didn't like was the first thing that you really notice is the constant background noise. Pretty amazing. A lot of sparkles. Bring you back down. There is so much chatter in the background. And the good thing that I did like was that tends to diminish. You don't tend to notice it so much the longer the cruise goes on. So although it was difficult at times, it wasn't quite the issue for the old cruise that it could have been. The other thing with it being a sort of 2-night party cruise was that there was music playing everywhere, and I mean sort of taped background music, and it was quite loud everywhere, so that just added to the noise around the ship. What I did love about the ship initially was just how beautiful it was. The areas of the ship have been very well thought out, and everything is beautifully decorated, beautifully presented, and you certainly walk around the ship thinking, wow, that's impressive, and it is. But one of the things I disliked was that when you pre-book, so let's say, for example, I decided that I wanted to see both shows in the Carousel Lounge. Now, certainly if you would like to do the same, and I will say they are definitely worth the £9 pre-cruise, then you will save a lot of money by pre-booking them. If you wait till you're on the ship, you're going to pay £15. But what I will say is that when you book the shows, you're not given the choice of a time or a day. You just booked it and that's it. So when you get onto the ship, you actually have to go to a certain point and book the time and the day. Now, I was told to go to the Carousel Lounge to book it. Got to the Carousel Lounge, there was nobody there, and it ended up I should have gone to one of the restaurants in the Virtuosa Galleria to book the times there. Also, you have to book your entertainment. So there are screens around the ship. There is one in the Galleria Virtuosa, a large screen where you can just click on show the theatre, and you can book yourself a place there and then. But it just seemed to me a lot of hassle, particularly when there are 3 shows every night, that you have to book it. You're not booking a particular seat, you're just booking the fact that you're going into the show. The other thing I had to sort out was I had to sort out my spa treatment. I decided I was going to treat myself. I mean, this face needs some work. So I booked a facial at the spa. And again, I booked the treatment, but you couldn't book pre the time or the day. And I found that a bit frustrating. So far I've had to go and book the 2 shows at the Carousel Theatre. I've had to go and book the entertainment for the theatre in the evening, and I've had to go and book the spa. And the spa was a bit strange because when I got there, it was sort of like, I don't know, let's say 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they wanted me to have my treatment there and then. And I didn't want that, and they were a little bit pushy, but I did eventually manage to say, look, I've had a long journey, I don't want it now, I need to shower, and I want it to be sort of stress-free. So I managed to book it for the following morning. But be aware, go to the spa if you need to, book your time and day, and be prepared that they might try and get you in there and then if it's quiet. Right, so all those things to dash around the ship to book, and I haven't finished yet. What about dining? Well, this is your cruise card, and on here you have got the restaurant that you have been allocated. You've also got the time and the table number. Now, I have to say, this is the first time that you will find out what time and restaurant you've been allocated. I did have the choice to put whether I wanted early or late dining. I put early, and I was initially given 7 p.m. Now, for me, that was still too late because of certain medicine I have to take. So I needed to go and try and get that changed. So I went to Minuetto, which is the restaurant that I had been allocated, and I was told that I couldn't change it there, that I'd need to go to another one of the restaurants. I believe it was either Opera or Symphony, and that I could change it there. So I went, and there was a few people going in, but the chap at the door said, yes, you can change it, but you need to go and sit in there and wait to be called. Now, I wasn't given a ticket number, or there didn't seem to be any queuing system whatsoever. Once you were inside the restaurant, there were chairs laid out in rows, and you just sat anywhere. Now, I made the mistake of sitting nearer the back because the front was fairly busy, and I sat there and waited, and more people kept coming in, sitting in front, and I found out that every time basically there was 2 desks facing us at the front with staff there, and they were obviously doing the changes that were needed. And I found out that every time somebody came in, when somebody left those chairs, it didn't matter what order they came in the room, they were up and sat down. And so I just found that a little bit stressful and a little bit strange that they couldn't just give you a little raffle ticket with a number on as you went in and use that system, which would have sort of eased any of the stress with it, really. But anyway, I did manage to get it changed, and so it can be done, and it wasn't a great issue. The one thing I didn't realise, that on here also it tells you a table number. Now, I've only found that out since I've got home from the cruise. I didn't realise that it actually allocates you a table as well. So I will come to that in a minute, but I didn't know about that on the day that I boarded the ship. Now, having changed it, I thought, that's it. I think I've done everything I need to do. And so I then decided that I would go back and see if my room was ready. By this time, it was about 3:10. So it was 40 minutes over the time that we were told the rooms would be ready. I got back to my cabin, and I didn't like the fact that it wasn't ready. Only because I'd been told it would be. You know, it's okay, it's fine. If it's going to take a bit longer, then I can wait. The problem is that, again, something I didn't like was that you have to be at your room at 4 p.m. to take part in the muster, which they have to do by law. So I needed to be able to be in the room at 4 o'clock to watch this video. I was also aware that I was now dining at 5 p.m. and I really wanted to have a change and shower. So it was all getting a bit close with time. But anyway, 3:10, I decided to go off again. I did go to reception and just query the room not being ready, and they told me it would be ready soon. The lady on the desk made a phone call. This one wasn't quite so good. She was a bit more offish. But she made a couple of phone calls and told me it would soon be ready. So I went back to my room at about 3:45 and it was in the process of being cleaned then. I waited and waited, and one thing I did note while I was waiting in the corridor is that they weren't keeping up with getting the luggage to the rooms. They were all piled together along one space. And people were actually coming and getting their own luggage to take to their rooms. And I think, again, one of the issues that's going to come up a lot for me with the ship is that they can't cope with the numbers of people on there, the quick time of turnaround, and the fact that there probably isn't enough staff to get the job done in the time that they're supposed to do it. And that is something that's going to come up a few times on this cruise. Anyway, the captain put over the tannoy that the video would be starting in 5 minutes for the muster. My room still wasn't ready, but I finally managed to get in about 10 minutes later, thinking I'd missed the video, but nothing was happening. But by this time I was really confused because I put the TV on and it wasn't clear. It said on the channel I was on that it would be on that channel, but it looked like almost like the TV was playing up, and I didn't think I was going to be able to watch the video. Well, after sort of another 10-15 minutes, the video suddenly came on the screen. And the idea is that when you have watched the video, you make a call on the phone call, you make a phone call on the phone, and that sort of registers that you have, or that you're telling them that you have watched the video. After that, you are then told to go to your muster station. Now, this I've never experienced on any other ship that I've been on. They all have their slightly different ways of doing the muster drill, but MSC do everybody at the same time at different locations over the ship. And what I didn't like was the absolute chaos once I left the room. I'd established I needed to go to muster station L, which was at the casino. The queue down the stairs was very slow. I would hate to think what it'd be like in a real emergency. There was chaos and confusion when we got to the actual floor where the casino is. I eventually made it to the muster station, and again there was a lot of confusion. I showed my card, it was tapped, but I didn't know then whether I'd got to carry on and do something else. Somebody in front of me turned around and went back the way he'd come, and stupidly that was the thing I should have done. Because I was directed into the casino, I had to walk quite a way to get to the end of the queue just to get back out the casino the way I'd just gone in. And so I didn't like that. Obviously after the muster, you can forget trying to use a lift. They were absolutely chaotic. So I had to walk back up the stairs to my room. Right, got back to my room and I thought, that's it, everything's done. I can start to relax and enjoy myself now. Oh no, Poopgate was about to hit me. So got back to the room and I thought, I've got time for a quick shower before I go to dinner. But I went to the bathroom to use the toilet, lifted the seat up, Oh my word. Firstly, whoever was in that room before me, you need shooting leaving the toilet in that state. I can't believe that you'd even leave it like that. Secondly, obviously, the toilet was not nice at all. There was poo, there was hairs everywhere. It was not nice at all, particularly as I was going to be using it and staying in that cabin. So I couldn't have my shower. I'd got to sort this toilet out. Now, I went to the corridor to look for the cleaner, for the cabin steward, and nowhere to be seen. The sort of cabin steward did say to me that if your room is not lit up to be cleaned by 12 midday each day, then they won't clean it. And there is no turn down service, which is one of the things that I really love about Marella, is you get the turn down service at night with your chocolates and the next day's newsletter. And so I found, because I'd sailed on P&O and theirs was the same, that seems to be the way for the bigger ships. They just can't cope with doing it. So anyway, no cabin steward to be found. I had no choice but to make another visit to reception. Yes, they were getting to know me rather well by now, but each visit I went, I was tending to get a little bit worse service. Now, because muster was still taking place, when I got to reception, it was all coned off. And I thought, oh, that's a bit strange, because there were two girls typing away on there. But I wanted to be first in the queue because there was no one else there, so I went and stood where the queue normally is. And somebody else came behind me in the queue, and I was a bit upset when a member of staff came and spoke to them before they spoke to me at the front of the queue, but hey-ho. But he finally came to me afterwards. I think I had to sort of get his attention, and I told him the problem, and I just found him a little bit abrupt and not very bothered about what I was reporting, even though to me it was quite horrendous, particularly as it was sort of getting late and my room still wasn't sorted. But on the second effort, he did actually record it in his little notebook and told me it would be sorted, but didn't say when. But anyway, I went back to my room, and it wasn't long before the cabin steward came. Now, I was made to feel quite guilty because the cabin steward said to me, I'm going to get in trouble for this. I'm going to get a written warning for this. And I did feel guilty. I didn't want to get her in trouble. I mean, I am well aware that she has got so many cabins to clean that it is not an easy job. She works hard on a changeover day. And I certainly didn't want or intend for her to get in any trouble. But I can't forget that I paid good money to be on that cruise. And the one thing you do expect when you're told that your cabin is ready, for it to be ready. But because I felt so guilty, I did ask her when she'd finished cleaning the toilet, and that took about 15 minutes for her to clean it. I did say to her, is your boss about? I'd like to speak to him. And so she did go and get him and came back. And I did say to him that I did not hold her responsible, that she is being sort of having to do a really hard job, very demanding, and that I didn't want her to get in any trouble. Fortunately, I saw her the next day and she did tell me that she'd had a verbal warning, but not a written warning. So, you know, it was probably the best all round, that she had a little tap but didn't have serious consequences from it. And I felt a little bit better, a little bit less guilty that I'd said anything. Right, the next situation was, because that toilet took a while to clean up, I got to dinner at 5:25. And what I didn't like was the attitude of the greeter at the restaurant. Now, not only me, but there was a young family in front of me that we were due to dine at 5 and we arrived about 25 past 5. And we sort of got the comment of, why are you late? And I then had to explain. And I just thought, was there any need for that? You know, I just, or at least take us somewhere private and have a chat. But I just felt it was all a bit over the top and, you know, not necessary. People could have all sorts of reasons on Embarkation Day for not being somewhere on time. I don't usually like to be late, I'll add. But I didn't realise then either that your table number is on your card. And but I did say to the greeter, look, I've had a really bad afternoon. I'm hot, sweaty. I haven't had a chance to shower. I don't think I'll be very good company. Can you please make sure I am on a table on my own? So she went off, spoke to the person on the computer. I'm not sure, is that the maitre d'? I'm not sure. But anyway, she came back and said, follow me. And I followed her and she took me to a table of 6. There were 2 people already on the table, and I just didn't feel in the mood for sharing and conversing with strangers on a table, and that's me missing out, but I felt I had justification for it. And so I said to her, can you please try and get me a table on my own? But then, because I felt guilty, I had to explain to the 2 people on there why I didn't want to sit there or sit with them. But anyway, they were very understanding and no problems there. And eventually I was taken to a table on my own. Let's talk very briefly about my dining experience. On the table, I like the fact that there is your waiter's name. Mine was called Benny. He was brilliant. So big shout out to Benny in the Minuto restaurant. Looked after me really well. What I didn't like was there was no hard copies of menus. There was just QR codes on the table. Now, I had a major issue with my phone. It just would not connect to the MSC Wi-Fi, and so I could not access any of the QR codes. Now, because of this, Benny did bring me a proper menu and I was able to choose. But the following night, when I had the same issue, the gentleman was very reluctant. He took my phone, he tried messing around with my phone to get it to work, and he was very reluctant to actually get me a proper menu. In the end, because he couldn't get it to work, he did go and get it. But I did find that a little bit off-putting and a little bit not needed. If you've got problems, take my word for it, I can't access it. I'm not stupid with technology. Just if you've got menus, bring me a menu. Food itself, food on the first night was okay. I think food on the cruise in general was quite poor, probably the worst I've had on a cruise ship. It was quite bland, it wasn't presented very well, but I will say you won't grow hungry. I did eat it all and it was okay. I suppose if I was going to liken it to something, I would say it was like having a cafeteria dinner, not sort of main dining room on a cruise ship. But there we go, that was the end of lunch. It was served fast. I managed to get drinks, no problem at all, in the dining room. And so overall, the experience there was okay. Right, once I'd had dinner, I was able to go back to my room, get that much needed shower, and then go off and enjoy the evening on the ship. It was very busy everywhere, queues at all the bars, very hard to get a seat anywhere, even being a solo person, and very hard to get a drink unless you were prepared to queue for a good while. I saw very little waiter service around the ship. I think once I got waiter service, and that was during the day the next day when it was much quieter in the crow's nest. But let's go to the evening and cover entertainment. The show Archimea is at the Carousel. Like I said earlier, you pay £9 pre-cruise, £15 on the cruise. and the show is at the Carousel Lounge. You get a cocktail included. There were 3 different types of cocktail. I have to say the one I tried was absolutely horrendous. I didn't drink it, and I did see a lot of glasses full left when the show had finished. The show itself, absolutely amazing. Can't sort of say enough how good it was, and that definitely if you like a show, then I'd liken it, I suppose, to something like the Cirque du Soleil with the aerial artists, the juggling, the acrobats. It was absolutely amazing. I didn't get the story, but you didn't need to. The spectacle was enough, especially as well as it got the LCD screen around the back. The only thing that some people might find annoying is in the audience, they've got lots of lights going around, flashing, and occasionally you did get a very bright light in your face. Didn't bother me too much, but I did see people sort of doing this sort of thing, so just be aware that might bother you. Following that, I also had that night the entertainment at the theatre. I'd booked the time. You do need to do this, although the theatre was by no means full on my showing. The show itself, we had a lady by the name of Christine Elianas. She was apparently a semi-finalist on The Voice UK, and I thought she was absolutely brilliant. I wanna hear you go down, set fire to the rain, watch me pose, bearing in mind this was a 2-night party cruise, or booze cruise as the entertainment manager called it. She was perfect because she sang brilliant music. She really got the crowd engaged. She had everybody up dancing at the end, and I thought it was perfect for the type of cruise that it was. So an enjoyable experience. So hats off to MSC, because you certainly made me happy with the entertainment on the first night I was on there. So that basically, I had an early-ish night that night because it had been a long day, and that basically brings the first day to an end. So not the best start with MSC. Certainly, I think not having sailed with them before and being solo probably didn't help my situation, because my experience is my experience, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be yours. And so I can only report on how I find it, and I know that people tend to be loyal to certain cruise companies. Certainly with me, we tend to love Marella, and I know that there are many people who cruise MSC time after time after time and absolutely love it. So these are just my opinions, but we'll carry on again tomorrow with my feelings on the second day. Right, breakfast the following morning I had at the buffet, and it was, again, I think all I can ever say about the food on there, it was okay. I didn't eat it all. The quality wasn't that brilliant, but you're definitely not going to go hungry. There will always be something for you to eat on there. And what I was looking forward to was actually seeing what the ship would be like with people going off for excursions. There were excursions going off to Paris, to Mont Saint-Michel, and I thought it might thin the crowds out on the ship a little bit. And also we were helped by the fact that it was a nice day and people were up on the pool deck enjoying the pools. And I think that definitely showed that if you go on this ship in bad weather, then the likelihood is it is going to be packed everywhere inside the ship. If you get good weather and you've got a port stop, then you're going to probably see the ship in a much better light, as I did, because my second day while we were in Le Havre, I didn't go off the ship. I spent time going around, touring it, trying to film it. And I did find that it was quieter everywhere, and it was nice because I could get served at bars, no problems. And so I did quite enjoy the day on the second day. And of course this changes again at evening when everybody's back on the ship, But for that day, I really got to appreciate the beauty of the ship, what the ship has to offer. You know, the games room, the sort of the F1 Formula experience, the bowling alley, the climbing ropes, the water slides. You know, there is a lot to do on there, particularly for families. What I didn't like was the fact that you have got extra charge on things. The Formula One experience, for example, is, I think, or was, £14, which is a lot of money, particularly if you've got several kids. And even for me on my own, I thought it was a little bit too much to pay additionally, although I'm sure the experience probably would have been worthwhile. And I mean, another sort of example of the extra charge is Rob, the robot bartender in the Starship bar. Now, you can key in on the screen a drink, and again, I think you're paying about £14 to get Rob to make you a cocktail. Now, you do get to keep the container that the cocktail comes in, but it still seems to me when you're on the drinks package that you're paying the same as anyone else, and maybe there should be a reduced rate if you've got a drinks package. But no, it's one charge for everybody, and I just found that the extra charges around the ship will start to build up. But the ship itself is beautiful, and you know, there are a lot of areas to really appreciate. Now, I had planned to do a live stream while I was on the ship in the afternoon, so I'll very quickly mention Wi-Fi. I had the slightly higher package, the mid package I think it was, which gave me the streaming capabilities. I paid £26 for the duration of my 2-night cruise, which I thought was pretty reasonable. And I have to say the internet worked really well. I had no problems with it at all anywhere I was around the ship. One of the problems I did have was I wanted to do the live stream in the afternoon, and I was on the lookout everywhere I went for somewhere to do this. And this proved to be a bit of an impossible task, because everywhere I went there was either people and there was a lot of chattering noise, which is fine. I'm not trying to say people should be quiet for me. But there was also the bigger problem was that everywhere you went there was background music. If you went to a bar, if you went down even the Galleria, if you went up on deck, wherever you went there was background music. Now, for YouTube vloggers, that is a bit of a nightmare when it comes to copyright and trying to get round the copyright for it. So I found it really hard, and I did think I'd found somewhere in the Carousel Theatre and I'd got it all set up, and I suddenly realised there was even music playing in the background there. So I had to dash back to my cabin and do it from there. But that is a problem that I will have, and unlikely that you will experience any difficulties with that. So let's move on to the last night. I will just cover dinner again. I had dinner again in Minuetto. And I have to say I found the menu really disappointing. Now, as well as the main menu for that evening, there was just nothing on there that appealed in the slightest. But apart from that, on the second page, they have a list of always available. But again, I didn't really fancy anything on there. But in the end, I made a choice, and I had lasagna, which came, and again, I thought the presentation was a bit lacking. The taste was quite nice, so probably just above okay, but it just wasn't very inspiring. So overall, I have to say I did get pizza on the ship at one point, and that was okay. Again, nothing fantastic, but it was okay. And I did have a burger from the pool snack place, and that was absolutely awful. That was inedible, and I think I've probably hopefully showed you a clip of that while we're talking. So food, you know my opinion, it was very poor, not great, but in fairness to MSC, the cruise, I didn't have long enough to go and try the specialty restaurants, and I think probably that might have been a totally different experience. Let's move on to the entertainment again. That night was great. They had a show in the main theatre called Rocks, and it was brilliant. Again, great music, and really enjoyable show. Again, very apt for the type of cruise it was. I saw Adiasia, something like that. I probably said it totally wrong. The second show in the carousel, I actually love this one more than the first one, and I did manage to get a few shots, so hopefully I'll play those over here as well. But definitely well worth going to see. White Night, I did walk around the ship. Impossible to get a seat or a drink anywhere unless you were prepared to queue for a long time. Very busy in every bar. Great atmosphere though. One thing I did love MSC is the live acts that you have around the ships. Lots of singers that were really good, but also I love the fact that you had musicians in the atrium. We had a really good saxophonist one night, a pianist. So hats off, entertainment on MSC I found first class and really good. White Night, a bit mixed really. I think it's very much weather dependent. If the weather's bad, they have it in the Galleria Virtuosa. If it's good, they'll have it on the pool deck. Now, they decided on that night that it was going to be on the pool deck. I would say probably on the ship, a lot of people wearing white, but also a lot of people not wearing white. So don't feel obliged. I think it's nice to make the effort, and I put white on, and I think it was quite nice to be part of that. But a lot of people, you don't have to be pressured to wear white. A lot of people didn't, and you're not turned away or anything anywhere. But anyway, let's get up to White Night on the top deck. Now, although the weather was dry, it was quite cold and very windy on the top deck. And so I went out and filmed a little bit, but I didn't feel that I could really enjoy it. But I think had the weather been good, White Night would have been a massive enjoyment and a massive success. Following White Night, back to bed. I will say quickly, let's talk very quickly about the cabin. I had an inside cabin, and it was on deck 12, and it was absolutely fine. Apart from the initial problems with the cleanliness, it was absolutely fine. Plenty of storage, very comfy bed. I slept really well on my 2 nights there. Air conditioning worked really well. Plenty of room to move around. You've got the kettle and all the coffee and tea making facilities, ample plugs. You've got USB each side on the lights. So the room was very good. You got the safe. The one thing that I didn't like was you had a fridge in there, but my fridge was locked. And I don't know why, because surely if there's a minibar, they'd want you to maybe purchase things out the minibar. Although I have heard that you can ask for it to be emptied and you can store your own stuff in there. But mine was locked and it was never opened. I didn't, because it wasn't a massive issue for me, I didn't go and try and chase down and get it opened. I'd had enough of doing that. But it might be that you need to speak to the cabin steward if yours is locked and it is important to you. The other thing I slightly disliked about the cabin was the location of the telephone. It was quite low and it was down below sort of my chest height. And so it was quite awkward to see because it was in a dark corner as well. But that's only a minor quibble. I only actually used the phone once. And so finally, let's talk about disembarking. Disembarking, I had a leaflet come the night before I was due to disembark, which gives you all the information you need, and I will put a copy up now while we're talking. The one thing it does show on the back is your cabin numbers and what time your departure time is. Now, I believe mine was 8:45 a.m. or around that period, 8:50 I think it was, and I'd got to go to the Blue Danube bar. Now, I wasn't sure about this because I hadn't got luggage. I'd got hand luggage, but I hadn't got main luggage. So everything I was taking off, I was carrying. So I was anxious to get off the ship as soon as possible, really, just because I'd got a train to catch. And so I didn't go for breakfast that morning. It was a bit limited where you could eat. Now, I presume that's because it was a 2-day cruise. I think there was only the buffet available. And I decided that I was going to try and leave the ship at about 7:20. So I went down to where I came on the ship at the atrium. That wasn't being used, but where people came on in the Virtuosa Galleria, it was open and I was able to walk off there. They scan your card as you go off to make sure that you've got no outstanding room bill. Somebody in front of us had, and they were sent back to a desk just behind us to settle it. I went straight through there and that's it. I was off the ship without having to wait until 8:50 a.m. And so that was a massive relief for me, because then you come off the ship, you go up the gangways, and then you pass through the hall. Now, the baggage is there. The only thing I would say with the times if you've got baggage to come off is whether your baggage is later getting there than what was already there. And that might be an issue that you would need to check. But anyway, there was baggage there, and you could collect that if you needed to. And that was it then. Back to the train station, another simple walk back, and the whole disembarkation was done in about 10 minutes. So again, I was really impressed with that. But just remember, if you've got hand luggage, you can probably go off at whatever time you want. So let's talk very quickly. I'm going to give you my 3 best and my 3 worst things about MSC. First of all, my 3 best things. I loved the ship and the cosmetics of the ship. It is absolutely beautiful. Secondly, I loved the entertainment. The entertainment was first class. Thirdly, I enjoyed the drinks when I could get one, that is. I thought the standard of drink making was really, really good compared to other cruise ships that I've been on. Now let's look at my 3 biggest dislikes. Firstly, there is a cruise for everyone. I think a cruise with over 6,000 people on is probably not my cup of tea. Certainly not for the short duration of the cruise that I went on. So I think the sheer numbers of people on that ship and what I would consider is overcrowding has knock-on problems everywhere that you go and with every service that you have. My second dislike, I would have to say, was the food. I thought the food was substandard. You're not going to starve anywhere. There is things to eat. I just found the presentation, the taste and the quality not brilliant at all. Thirdly, I'm obviously going to say about my room. The rooms shouldn't be in the state they were in once you've been told that your room is ready. I have no problems with the room not being ready. I do have problems with it being passed as being ready and then finding the issues with the toilet that I found. Would I sail with MSC again? Yes, surprisingly I would. I would very much like to see what a longer cruise is like. I think it would be a different experience. I think with different ports, people are going to be getting off on excursions. Although I have heard with MSC that people can embark and join a ship at the different ports that you visit. So I'm not sure whether that would be a bit chaotic or not, or whether it wouldn't even be noticeable. But also I would love to have tried the specialty dining, because I think that might have given me a better food experience. There were certainly things that I liked with MSC. So although I had a really bad start, I think it was probably just bad luck. and I would be prepared to give MSc another chance. So if you've got any comments, I know a lot of you are going to say I'm a whinger. I know a lot of you are going to say I'm a moaner. I do think I had good cause on quite a few of the issues here to have a little moan. I do say a lot of you are going to stick up and say how much you love MSc, and I think that's brilliant because I know that is the case and people are loyal to certain brands. And so I think it's great that you will stick up for it and balance what I've said. So you will let people know, hey, you can have a great time. We absolutely love it and wouldn't go with anyone else. And I think that's really good. But thanks for watching. I hope you've learned some things from it. Keep watching because maybe one day I will come back with another report on MSc. If you haven't subscribed, then please consider subscribing. As I said before, it helps us out a great deal. Hit the like button and also the notification for information of our forthcoming videos. So thanks for watching everybody and sticking with it. It's been a bit of a long one, but hopefully I'll see you again. Bye.